when I thought about the actual competition in training, every once in a while I'd get some like butterflies and I'd be like, whoa, that was a little weird, you know? Yeah. And then it would pass. And then like the night before I'd be thinking about it a little bit, but nothing too crazy. I could usually sleep okay and all that. And then when I compete, it just like didn't really feel like it felt exactly like a training session, really. No one thinks that we have like some loser talk going over here by saying like, you should take our time with stuff. You probably people probably have heard us saying, you know, you should pull back a bit. And there's people that are on the other side of that where like, oh man, what's happening? Like, why are you guys talking this way? You got to be like, fuck it, bro, and you got to go all in. We do believe in some of that sometimes. I do think that that's important, and all three of us have trained that way before. But we're also looking for something that's sustainable. I was with my nephews this weekend, and I was like, I'm gonna go out on a run. They're like, who's gonna carry the boats? And then the other one goes, you don't know me, son. You don't know me, son. And they both love YouTube, so obviously they've stumbled across some David Goggins. And I started laughing. I'm like, yeah, what boats is he talking about? I was like, those talks get me fired up, but I don't know what he's talking like. Boats from where? I don't know how to carry a boat, and if I did, it sounds like it would be too heavy. Oh my God. Where am I supposed to go for these boats?
Man, there really are some people that be running out here just on the tracks or on the trails with the Goggins voice just going in their head. Who's going to carry the boats? Just like, stay hard, stay hard. It's great, man.
It's also hard to like run it like a casual pace with that kind of yelling and screaming going on.
Gets you too hype.
He's too fired up. But something I found a lot of his content to be really interesting, and I've been listening to David Goggins' stuff for a pretty long time. We had him on the show at one point. And I think sometimes it just sounds like yelling. You know, sometimes it just sounds like, I mean, he is yelling. He's like yelling at you, you know? But once I kind of got past that, even before I started running, I started listening closer to the dialogue that he was saying, because I really liked a lot of the stuff that he said on Joe Rogan. And I'm like, I like what he's saying on Joe Rogan, but sometimes when I listen to these like motivational speeches that are put to music, I kind of feel like he's yelling at me. And then I heard one of his talks one time where he was saying like, if you don't dig what I'm saying, like you're probably not there yet. Like you're probably not. And I thought that was really interesting. I was like, you know what? I probably do need to be more open-minded to this. Like not everyone's going to like content from a particular person. Like that's just the way it is, right? Not everyone's going to. It's not always going to be everyone's cup of tea. For some people, they absolutely love what David Goggins says. Other people could leave it and just be like, I don't dig it that much. But as I gave it more of a chance, I started to like it more and more, and just started listening to like the context of what it is that he's saying. And something I heard just the other day on a run is I heard him saying that, you know, going into the Navy SEALs and going into Navy SEAL training is so difficult and so demanding that you better already have it together before you get there. And I think he meant from a mental standpoint, not necessarily just physical, although there's obviously like a physical demand that could be pretty crazy with BUD/S training and all those things. But he's a person that failed many times. You know, I think he went through BUD/S 3 times. He went through the training 3 times and then finally made it through. So I thought, like, who better than this guy to know what your mindset needs to be going into it? Because I think the first time, you know, he had to lose weight, and there was like an officer that was telling him, like, look, man, you got to be this weight to get in here. And then he finally did, like, he lost weight, but he was just doing too many things at one time. And it just kind of reminded me of the journeys that we hear people go on. People, like, they're trying to lose weight, and they want to do like a powerlifting meet. They're like, I'm going to get down to this, you know, 220 pound weight class and compete. It's like, there's a lot of things going on. Like you're trying to lose body fat, augment your body, look leaner, look better, and enter this competition that you've never entered before. And then we hear the same dialogue sometimes with not just bodybuilding, but sometimes with like jujitsu, powerlifting competitions, all kinds of things. And so I thought it'd be kind of a good topic today of like, almost like what should you try to get in order? And should you try to get anything in order? Or should you just say, like, roll the dice sometimes and just say F it and go for it?
I feel what you're saying. There's like the bodybuilding show thing, I think is kind of the funniest, and it's close to my heart because when I used to work with people, I'd get a lot of inquiries, and it'd be like a guy or a woman, and let's say they just started training, right? Let's say they've been training for a year, and I want to do a bodybuilding show. I want to do a men's physique show. I think that's a good goal. Or I want to do a bikini show, and you've literally only been training for a little bit. Well, that is, I guess, the big goal, right? But have you built the habits of your nutrition? Because when you start prepping, you can't fuck up your food. When you start prepping, you have to be on point with the way you're eating. You have to be on point with all your workouts. So you need to be pretty familiar with how to train. Have you ever really dieted? Because now, if you're new to training and then you're now going to be new to dieting, your training is going to take a hit. So you need to be pretty decent at lifting and training, because now you're going to be doing it in a depleted state. You're biting off way too much than you can chew right now.
Yeah, and what's our option if you only been training for a year? And let's just say it would be very likely that if you only been training for a year, you probably don't have like a lot of muscle mass.
You need much more development.
And so our only option then is just to get like insanely lean. And then your only option then is to, if we're talking about a male and he's 200 pounds or something, we're talking about you probably getting into some like nasty caloric restriction type stuff that you just don't want. You're going to be biting off more than you can probably chew.
And dog, not even a bodybuilding show. Just the idea of wanting a six pack. Because I think let's take it like up a notch, right?
Like
most guys are just like, I want a six pack and I want it now. And I've barely been training. I haven't been training that long. I've been doing this, but I want a six pack. Well, you got nothing to build on top of. You need a little bit of time to build some muscle.
Yeah.
Before you try to just shred yourself down.
Yeah, and make sure you really rain on their parade too, and always compare yourself to them and say, it took me 10 years to build this body. You can't do this like this in 4 years.
Yeah, you little shit. What do you think this is?
The fuck, man? Andrew Z's been going hard for I don't know how long.
Just talk about the boats.
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, yeah. Well, but you don't want the complete opposite, right? You don't want to have somebody say like, oh, I have to get in shape before I start going to the gym. You know, like as far as like getting things in line, like, well, maybe you can actually get started right away, but the main goal is actually further away though. Like I see it both ways for sure.
Yeah, and I think that you know, like if you're trying to get into something, I think the number one thing is always to start, right? But I think, you know, for larger commitments like the Navy SEALs, like something like this is something potentially if you make it through that I think you're there for like 4 years, maybe you're there for 2 years. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, but you're there for a couple of years, you know? And so with that big of a commitment on the line, it probably makes some sense to do some jogging. It probably makes some sense to do some rucking.
What
probably makes some sense to lift.
What are the things? Can you pull up like what they make Navy SEAls do? There's probably a list because like
a lot of
you
stuff.
can't just go into this shit like untrained. Like
I heard that some people have kind of gone into it fairly untrained, which is pretty wild. But if you're untrained, I would say at the very least you have to like be a little fit, you know, maybe have done some sports or something.
You have to have some level of fitness.
Yeah.
You can't just
You gotta climb ropes and shit.
Yeah.
I think there's all kinds of crazy shit you gotta do. You gotta be able to swim. You know,
they'll make you do shit underwater for a hot minute, like trying to like kick.
I've heard there's a lot of guys that go in, they don't know how to swim, which is like, that would be so scary. But I guess they figure it out when they're there.
Black Navy SEAls.
I'm trying to
Was
find
that like some sort of hidden message in the show?
I don't know.
I'm trying to find accurate information because this shit is it's legit as fuck, and I don't want to like upset anybody by saying it. Yeah, I don't want to fuck that up. Of all things for me to mess up, I do not want to mess up Bud's training. I'll find it and I'll whatever.
But you know, I think also like you got to figure out like, why are you doing so? I think that's the big question. Like, why are you doing it? Because like, you know, a lot of people have been starting running, and I've been seeing a lot of people in the Discord are like, okay, I want to do a marathon, right? Because starting running is super exciting. They see you run a marathon, they see all these people do marathons, so like, I want to do a marathon. But okay, what's the reason you want to do a marathon? What's going to happen after the marathon? What's the marathon going to give you after you do the marathon? Is there some type of fucking enlightenment that comes post-marathon? Probably not. So like, how about, you know, you're probably doing a marathon because you like to run. So how about you maybe get decent at running, not do too much too soon, And then when you hit the marathon, like you have a good experience doing the marathon.
I know so many people that get hurt, and it's unfortunate. And again, like if you have found a purpose, if you found a reason, and it could be your own reason that you want to do a marathon, then maybe you should go for it. Because there are a lot of things that you learn along the way, especially whenever you compete in anything, you're going to learn a lot along the way. And whenever you up the ante a little bit and make the intensity of something a little harder, you're going to learn a lot along the way. I certainly learned a lot just in prepping for the marathon. There's a lot of there's things that are so small that you never think about. Just like your shorts. Like you need specific clothes. You don't want to chafe, Some people use Vaseline. Some people use coconut oil. Some people have particular shorts that they wear or particular sweats that they wear or leggings or whatever it is. Like you have to have all these little things situated. Otherwise you're going to be screwed. And then your shoes. A lot of people get excited and they're like, I'm going to do a competition. And so I'm going to save these shoes for game day. And they put the shoes on. They never worn them before.
They're not broken in.
And they're not broken in. Oof. And they get blisters and stuff. I mean, there's all these things that you're thinking I could tough through that. That wouldn't be that bad if I had a little blister on my pinky toe. It's not going to be a huge deal. But try having your pinky toe bleeding at mile 6. All the way to the point where it's bleeding through your shoe and stuff like that. There's all kinds of these little things that happen that if you just trained longer or just were more organized with your thoughts and communicated with some people, you probably wouldn't have to suffer through some of those things. Although there's going to be some shit that's coming your way almost no matter what you do. There's going to be some heartache. But I agree with what you were saying. It's let's just learn the skill. And let's just have try to have a good time with it, try to get better at it. And then if you're I ran 6 miles pretty good. I wonder what it would be like to run a half marathon, and you start to work your way towards that. And maybe before you run the half marathon, maybe you ran 8 miles, or maybe you ran 7 miles, something to where it's I ran 8 or 9 miles and it's okay. It's a game day thing, where I'm going to get a little more hyped and I am going to play some David Goggins while I'm running and I'm going to be able to get fired up to get through it. I think those things are all good ideas. But again, I think sometimes people are just trying way too many things at one time. You just picked up running and now you're competing in it. You just started it and now you're already, and I know that these competitions, these races, they're not even really, for most people, they're not even considered a race. They're not even considered a competition, which is kind of nice. That's kind of nice to do it that way. It's kind of nice to, if you're doing jujitsu and you're a white belt and you're I'm just going to go test myself. You're really not looking at it as much as a competition because you want to kind of soften what the surroundings really are. You really are competing against another person that's trying to choke you out or that's trying to tap you out in some way. They're trying to get you in a position where you have to quit, basically. But you just started something and then now you're trying to effectively be able to do it in a competition. And so it might be good just to wait a little bit until you develop the skill a little bit more so that when you're in the competition, you can have a little bit more fun with it. And the only way to be fun or be free in any of these things is to be proficient at them, is to be good at them.
I remember when I was coaching people for bodybuilding shows and bikini shows, when an athlete had the goal of doing a show, I would always ask them, what is your personal expectation? What are you looking to get out of this? And if the athlete told me, I'm looking to win, if I knew that they would not, or they didn't have the ability at the moment in time, I would straight up say, okay, I love that you want to win. And that's a good thing. That's a good goal. You're not at a place where you'd be able to win. Now, if you want to do it so you can get the experience and you can see what this is like so that the next time you come back, you know what you're getting yourself into, fuck it, let's go for it. But don't expect to win because winning takes a different level of commitment and winning takes a different level of skill. You need to be doing this for a while. You need to build more muscle. You need to build more muscle. You can't just win with where you are. So I think doing competitions is great, but understand if you are there's difference between competing to compete and the experience, because that experience can teach you a lot. Doesn't matter if it's a fucking marathon, if it's a show, it's a jiu-jitsu competition. The experience of competing will teach you a lot and help you get ready for your next one. But if you're looking to win a competition, that is a different level of commitment, skill, all these different intangibles needed so you can have the ability to win your competition.
And how was that received when you would say like this isn't going to be the one that you win?
It's always been received well because I generally ask that person what their goal is. So if they come at me and they tell me their goal is to win and I'm your coach, I'm going to tell you that no, you can't win yet. You're just not there.
You might be totally unaware how competitive it is. You might be like, oh, I'm just going to go into classic physique and do this local show. And you might be like, hey man, like I went last year and people are in crazy shape and I don't want to dampen your goals. Like we can get there, but maybe we need to go like a year and a half. Like let's take, half the year to do this and then half the year to do that.
As long as the individual knows what they're getting themselves into, because the fact is you can win, but you can't win now. You can win later if you give yourself more time. Just know that, like, especially in these physique competitions, because the people that are generally winning are the people who have been lifting for a long time, and then they cut and they do a show. Well, they won because they have 10 more years on you, or they have 5 more years on you.
A handful of people probably already told this person, you should compete in bodybuilding. And they were like, really? What? Okay. And then they did a 16-week prep and they kicked some ass. But they've probably been training for a decade. And the same thing, you could say the same thing with running. Like it could have been a person that has a soccer background or someone that has a track or cross country background. Oh, you should do a marathon. You should really do a marathon. You might not hear that right off the bat when you're first starting to, like, there's not going to normally be someone in the gym recommending that you do a marathon if you're 280 pounds and jacked, right? Like there's not going to be someone coming up to you being like, hey, you should go do a marathon. Nah. They probably would say you should do a powerlifting meet. You should do a bodybuilding show. And so I think you have to it's important that you kind of take your time with like learning these skills. And for myself, getting better at the skill has made some of these things more fun. The first half marathon that I did, our boy Oscar, he was working on me one day and I thought Oscar was a runner. I thought Oscar's been a runner for like forever because he had all the gear. He had all he had like the clothes and the fanny pack, and like I thought he had it going on for a while with running. And so he's working on me one day, and I'm like, "How long have you been running for?" He's like, "Oh, I started maybe like 6 months before you did." And I was like, "Huh?" And I was like, "Well, shit." I said, "Well, maybe I should do the half marathon that's coming up that you're doing." And he was like, yeah, he's like, you've been training long enough and it'll be good just to get through it. Yeah. But see, our expectations were low. It's like, let me go see if I can just get through that thing. And at that point, I think I ran like 5 or 6 miles and I'm like, okay, there's a couple months to train for it and I can get a couple runs in and I can see what a 7 or 8, 9 mile run looks like. And I can kind of see what I'm going to be capable of doing. And then when I got to the actual event, and this was some advice I got earlier too, but I took it more seriously when I got to the event, and I got it from one of the guys that runs one of the supplement stores around here. I think his name's Chris. 5 Star? Is that the name of the supplement place?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was running in that race, and he said, "Hey man, this is your first half marathon?" I said, "Yep." He goes, "Stop at all the aid stations. The aid stations are where you get your hydration, your water." And he said, and walk through all of them and take the drinks, or whatever's there, banana, orange, whatever it is. He's like, just go, do that. I was like, check. I'm going to do that. And I did that. And I ran the whole thing other than like stopping to use the bathroom once or something. And also walking through those stations. And that helped a ton. And it made it easier to actually get through. And I didn't have any regard for how long it took me. I don't even really know how long it took me. I want to say it took me like 3 hours or something like that. It took me forever. But that wasn't really a concern. The concern was like one foot in front of the other the entire time. And, they have people that hold up a sign when you're running, and it has like your times. So there's someone that will just like run like a 10-minute mile pace, and they hold a sign and people follow that person because they want to get a particular time for the race. Yeah. And I think I just because like the way that you start, like 8-minute mile pace, like boom, they go past, 9-minute mile pace, boom, they go, 9.5-minute mile, and so on. And then there's like no more pacers at that point because you're just so slow that there's like no reason to, because no one has the goal to like take forever to run the race. But you just got to ignore all that. You got to block it out. I was there for me. I was there to have an experience and to learn, and not try to kill myself.
Yeah.
How about like like for me, like with my last comp, I had the mindset of like I want to go and try my hardest to win, and that but it kind of forced me to train really, really hard. I felt like I left no stone unturned. Like I was rolling 4 or 5 times a week plus takedown practice because I had all these things that I wanted to get better at, because I had this plan of going and winning. If I had said, oh, I just want to go see what happens, I feel like I would have lowered my training to just see what happens. Like, all right, Monday's coming up, let me see what happens. Like, no, how about, all right, this month we're going to hit it, this way, and I'm going to go, schedule these privates over here. Like, I had everything kind of mapped out.
You did get hurt though, right? And have like a pretty good setback, right?
Yes, I did.
So maybe if the expectations were lower, maybe the training would have been like smoother. I don't know.
I
don't have any idea.
I got hurt. Both times that I got hurt really bad were on extra training days. So there were days that they were on the weekends when I was already had like a full schedule already done. And I'm like, oh, let me go get some more training in. And that's when both those injuries happened. But again, kind of going back to my question, and which is partly already answered, is like, how can I have still maintained a high level of, work ethic going into a competition without having the thought of like, oh, I want to go in and win?
I think it's a little different for you. I'll let Nsima comment because I think he'll have better commentary than me. But I just think that because the expectations like of you wanting to like do well, and you have somebody else that you're going against, like specifically, like in the marathon, I could ignore everybody, right? I can ignore every single other runner than myself. I could just concentrate on just me. I don't think you can do that in jiu-jitsu. Like you have somebody else to deal with, and that person, like they're trying, right? They're trying to fuck you up basically. And so you have a whole nother person to deal with. And so I think you went about it really well. I think you did the best. You put your effort in as much as you could, and you did what you felt was going to be best for you.
Andrew, I have a question. So you said the want to win. So obviously you wanted to win. Are you saying that was a problem, or just you changed the way you go about training because you wanted to win? What do you mean?
Yeah, it's sort of like when people do these challenges or whatever it may be, it's like, like when I did like abs for Christmas, I put it out there that by Christmas I was going to have a physique to do a photo shoot. So I put myself out there. When I did that, it was like, well, fuck, I can't unsay these things, even though like I don't have like a huge following or anything, but like I talked about it and I put that out there, and I was like, man, if come Christmas, if I'm all flabby, like, that's going to be like, I'm going to feel bad. So I'm going to put it out there that I'm going to have abs and I'm going to go do it. So when it came to this competition, I just said that like, I'm going to do everything it takes to win, and I'm going to go win. What I'm saying that if I didn't say that and I didn't put that out there, I might have not trained as hard.
So that's a you thing then.
Yeah, no, yes. And so that's what I'm saying. Like if I'm taking your guys' advice that you were talking about previously, if I just said, I want to see where I match up against everyone else, I'm going to, I'm gonna prepare for it, but whatever happens.
Higher Project family, if you're trying to increase your muscle mass, if you're trying to lose body fat, if you're trying to stick to a nutrition plan, if you're trying to get fit, pretty much if there's anything you're trying to do for your health, we know that sleep is the biggest determining factor to help you get from point A to point B. That's why we've been sleeping on 8 Sleep mattresses for probably more than 2 years now. And the main reason is the technology behind the Pod Pro. Now, the Pod Pro is like the Tesla of beds. It will change its temperature based off of how you're sleeping during the night. And if you have a partner that's sleeping on the other side, they could have their own temperature settings. We all sleep hot here, and I used to wake up in a puddle of my own sweat.
Gross.
That doesn't happen anymore because of the 8 Sleep mattress, and I've been getting the best sleep of my life. Now, if you don't want to replace your mattress, you can just get the Pod Pro cover, and you can put that over your current mattress to get all the benefits of 8 Sleep. But if you also need to replace your old nasty mattress, you can get the Pod Pro cover and the 8 Sleep mattress. Andrew, how can they get it?
Yes, you guys got to head over to 8sleep.com/power project, and you guys will automatically receive $150 off of your order. Again, 8sleep.com/power project. Links to them down in the description, as well as the podcast show notes.
So see, this is the thing though. I want to stop you there, because there's a verbiage thing going on here. Because yes, you go to a tournament to see how you're going to perform, and that doesn't mean that you're now not going to work as hard. Because it's like, you could go out there and then you're rolling against a 10-year wrestler and a 1-year white belt, right? You're not going to beat him, at least not yet,
No, yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But you're still going to try to perform your best against this individual. That doesn't mean that you don't want to win or whatever. It's just like, I think there shouldn't be such a focus of like, I'm going to get first place. Because we talked about this when we had Giancarlo Bodoni on the show. It's like, you just put too much pressure on yourself at first, where that hasn't happened yet. The pressure that you need to be putting on is like, in this match, I'm going to perform. In this next match, I'm going to perform. In this next match, I'm going to perform. One match at a time versus like the first place. Because if you do what you need to do and you play your game in each match, right? Could just happen that somebody was better than you, but if you just focus on playing your game, then the medal will be there. Right. But if you're thinking about that medal and you haven't even done match one, I don't know. I personally don't think that doesn't work well for me. I think of like, I'm going to let loose in these matches and I'm going to do what I know how to do. And if I get there, I get there. But I'm not going to put any pressure on myself, because when you start putting pressure on yourself, you start playing a little bit more reserved, especially in a sport like jiu-jitsu, because like you mentioned, Mark, there is subjective competition like bodybuilding and aspects of marathon running. Because if you're not running a marathon to try to beat a time or to try to beat your opponents, then it's a subjective race. At that point, you're racing against yourself, and that's fine, right?
It could even be for fun.
It could even be for fun, exactly.
You're not normally going to hear someone use the same language around jiu-jitsu, but maybe they are kind of doing it for fun.
No, but that's the thing, though. It totally also could be if it's like somebody's first competition. For jiu-jitsu specifically, like it takes a lot for people to go compete, because now like you're gonna be doing that in front of people, and there's a chance that you could get tapped in front of your loved ones, right? So you could just be going out there to show yourself you have the courage to compete against the other people. And at the end of the day, if you lose, that's still a personal win for you, even though you lost.
Yeah, I know you're pumped to get on the mats.
It was like Chris Bell was like, is that like the coolest thing you've ever done? I'm like, it's by far the coolest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
I look back at it and I smile all the time, and I didn't win, but like, dude, I lost by less than 2 points. Like, like that's really freaking cool. Like, I competed against seasoned competitors.
It's also a start.
It felt great. Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's just a start, just the beginning of you falling in love with a cool sport. Right.
Yeah.
So.
But no, what you said, Nsima, is freaking gold, man. I'm gonna clip that out and probably listen to it a bunch of times by myself, because what Giancarlo said, he was just like, between where you are now and gold, there's so many things that have to happen in order for that to happen, or there's so many steps in between there, and it's like, yeah, you can easily get lost in, I want to be standing on that podium, but instead it's like, how about we take it one match at a time, one takedown at a time, one pass at a time, and whatever it may be.
I think to go to the other extreme is probably a mistake too. It's probably a mistake to train for many years, as a white belt, and just still barely be a white belt just to go into some local competition to like try to whoop up on people, and you could totally be wrong, because you don't know. The white belt thing is such an interesting thing, because you don't know who some of the, like, there's like white belts, and then there's like quote unquote white belts, guys that like have been wrestling or doing other stuff for a long time, or even just mega athlete, that has good body awareness and stuff. So I think it would be a mistake to like wait too long. But I think what we're trying to explain here today is that, like, when I was boxing years ago, I learned how to box enough to be able to put some stuff in practice into some sparring. Like that's not that long, but it is, there is like a break-in period. Like hitting the bag and hitting a person are way different things. But I got to a point where I could be relaxed enough as if I was hitting a heavy bag in the ring with another person. And I remember my grandfather went and watched me spar. My grandfather boxed in like the Golden Gloves and stuff, and he had a cigar in his mouth, which he just didn't give a fuck. He like lit up a cigar in the gym. They later told him to put it out. So anyway, he just says, hit it like you hit the bag, you know, because he's seen me hit the bag before, you know, or hit the guy like you hit the bag. And that relaxed me a bunch. I was like, oh yeah, like, why am I on so much defense? What am I doing? Why don't I throw some shots? Why don't I have my own offense, you know? And so I started throwing some punches, and I still was getting my ass kicked, but I did a lot better once I was able to kind of calm myself down and utilize some of the skill that I have.
There's something that I tell myself, and Andrew, we'll play this video soon. That's a very good video. I saw this recently from John Donaher, but there's a mantra that I tell myself like every time I roll with somebody who is who I guess I view as better than me, right? Or in competition, and it's the idea of just like letting loose, right? Because I found that through my years of like training in jiu-jitsu, because I've always been bigger, I'd have to kind of be a bit more reserved with the way I roll with people. I have injured people when I was a blue belt because I, you know, let a little bit too much out. So I've always played in a way that I can make sure my training partner is safe, but I'm also getting in the work I need to. But what ended up happening is sometimes I'd go and I'd roll with people that are good, and I'd still roll in this reserved way. So now the thing I tell myself is like, for example, when we were training over at Austin, I was training Marigali, right? My first roll with him, I was tense. So I just told myself, dude, just fucking loosen up, right? And then the next rolls were like, he still beat me, but I was just so much better because I wasn't thinking anymore, and I was just letting my body do what the fuck I knew how to do, and I wasn't worried about injuring anybody or whatever. I was just doing the shit I knew how to do, right? So that's something that has helped out a lot. It's made a big difference.
Yeah, you need a lot of training to be able to do that. Like hours and hours and hours of training. You know, I think that people, they kind of underestimate that, and I think that would be great for people to work on the skill set, feel comfortable enough with the skill set, and then you make the decision to compete.
You want to watch this?
Yeah, play this. This is a good one.
Put a plank between the two buildings, and he walked across the plank once, twice, 3 times. And we just couldn't believe it. It was like, to us, it was like a guy who walked between the twin towers, you know, put a line across, and famously, it couldn't have been any better. We just were howling. We couldn't believe it. It was incredible. But at the end, he came down with his plank, and he put the plank on the ground, and he asked us all to run across it. And we all did. And it was easy. And then he looked at us, and he said something I never forgot. He said, the plank is the same. I put it up higher, and so it took your breath away. But you guys just ran across the plank. The plank didn't change. Your perceptions of it did. And he's right. That's the difference between the gym and the stage. There is no difference. The plank doesn't change. Only your perceptions change. That's the emphasis that I put on my athletes. It's the same thing you do every day. Everything else you see, the lights, the people, that's all an illusion.
Andrew, did the nerves of competing, did it like take your breath away, or your legs a little bit? Did you notice any of that?
Yeah. In trying to warm up, because my buddy Chris, who just won Masters Worlds, same with Nsima, he was like, yeah, let's get a good sweat going. Like, you don't want to walk into your first match like cold, and you don't want to make that be your first sweat. So let's move around and let's get your first sweat going. And we're doing that, and I'm like, dude, I'm not getting any oxygen. Like, I'm breathing out, and when I breathe in, there's nothing there. And that was very uncomfortable. And thank goodness I calmed down. And by the time my first match did hit, I already had forgot that even happened. And so like that was cool. But yeah, no, I had a little bit of shaky legs, but nothing too bad. Like I had some people like reached out, and they're like, hey, like when you're in the bullpen, there's a chance that you're not going to be able to walk. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, that's such bad advice to give somebody on their first comp. But I wasn't worried about that. But however, it was hard to breathe at first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it can be tough when you have competition like that. I got to wrestle a couple of times in front of like a large crowd, and I just got in the ring and like I felt like numb, like my whole body felt numb. As soon as I like ran the ropes and did a couple things that I, did hundreds of times, if not thousands of times, I was like so gassed. I was like, holy shit. And then the other guys were telling me, dude, you gotta settle down. I was able to calm down, but man, I got like out of breath quick, and it had nothing to do with the activity. I did the activity millions of times or so many times in training. But it was just the fact that there was, a spotlight on you.
Mm-hmm. Just like anything else, like competing is a skill. You know what I mean? It's like, I think that's one thing that trips people out a little bit. Your first competition, maybe if you don't do too well, you might be discouraged about not competing again. But the thing is like those when competing becomes something normal that you do, you don't get nearly as nervous, right? And you start to look at it as like, it's just another train. It's just another day where I'm going to go roll with people, because you're going to roll with people, except maybe you don't know who these people are, right? And that's it. You do this every day when you train in the gym. Do it here. Be as loose as you typically are. Try to at least, but you'll get better at being calm and being loose if you compete more often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me with powerlifting, I wasn't nervous. Like I might have been nervous when I was a kid. I don't even really remember when I was doing it when I was younger, but I would get nervous thinking about the competition every once in a while. When I thought about the actual competition in training, every once in a while I'd get some like butterflies, and I'd be like, whoa, that was a little weird,
Yeah.
And then it would pass. And then like the night before I'd be thinking about it a little bit, but nothing too crazy. I could usually sleep okay and all that. And then when I compete, just like, didn't really feel like it felt exactly like a training session, really. Usually had the same people around me. I always brought all my same stuff, like my same equipment that I would wear and all that stuff. So things were familiar, and I played it through my head a bunch of times of like, if I knew what the venue looked like, I kind of tried to play that through my head. If I didn't know what the venue looked like, I got to the venue early to take a look at it, trying to screen capture it with my eyes a bunch, and then, go to the hotel and just kind of visualize like, oh, how's that setup going to look like? All the squat racks facing this way, the bench facing that way. There'll be a bunch of people there. There'll be, a bunch of people in the warm-up room. And I would walk myself through all of it. Like, oh, people kind of know who you are now. So there's going to be people saying what's up, and people wanting to take a picture or whatever. And that's just part of it. You got to be, you got to be cool to people. Can't be a dick just because you're lifting. And just kind of like I would try to just have fun with it. And I did develop that mentality of, let's just kind of see what happens, because I competed fairly often. I was like, well, I would sign up for one meet, and if the meet, depending on how the contest went, and if I put together the total that I wanted, maybe I didn't compete for a couple weeks or a couple months. But if it didn't go great, then I just viewed it as an opportunity. It was like a training session. Yeah. It was a training session that just went a little south, and so I want to try that again in another like 4 weeks. And I already built up a good amount of strength for it. It's just that timing was off, or my projected numbers were off, or something just wasn't exactly right. And so I would go and compete again. And so once I kind of had the idea of like, oh, you can just go do this whenever. There's another competition, there's another world, there's another opportunity to compete again, then it just really calmed me down a lot. And I was like, well, I'll get that weight the next time on the platform, and then I would, and then scratch off that goal and then move on to the next one.
Did anything magical ever happen when you managed to win your first powerlifting meet? Did you feel like, did anything change in your life?
No, that's the kind of the cool thing is like, you're a world champion now, but it doesn't really, it means something. Like it means something, especially to the people that are in the sport and that follow the sport, and it's meaningful in a way. But you already had it before you got there, and I think that's the point of some of what David Goggins was saying in his quote, is that for him, he needed to have it already to get through Navy SEALs, because he tried to get through it a couple other times by just I think, covering up who he really was by pretending to be a different person, by pretending to be this, pretending to be that, pretending to be a jiu-jitsu guy, pretending to be a runner, pretending to be a power lifter, when you just haven't embodied it all just yet all the way. And for me, that was critical. And then it got to be the point where I was having a lot of fun with it. And I think that can be, if you're competing against somebody who's like laughing and having fun, it can be really like frustrating. But you see like Arnold, Arnold was so good and so far ahead of everybody that he could like mess with everybody and kind of have a good time. Or MJ was like that at certain points of his career, like where they can kind of like play with the other guys and have the whole opportunity, the whole experience be not only like get past the hump of being like afraid and scared, but to have a lot of fun with it. Casio.
Right now, I know you're looking in the mirror. You're getting ready for your nephew's quinceañera. You have a long sleeve on that looks horrible and your pants don't fit right. That's why we partnered. I don't know why you're laughing. That's why we partnered with Viore Clothing. You see, this is the Boulevard shirt jacket. Fits great, stretchy, feels amazing. It's the best long sleeve in my closet. And one of the biggest things that we love about Viore is that they have clothes that you can wear to parties. They have clothes that you can wear in the gym. Like I said, your nephew's quinceañera. You can look great wherever you go if you step your fashion game up. Plus, this stuff feels like baby skin on your skin, which is kind of creepy, but at the same time, it's kind of nice and you know it. Andrew, where can they get it?
Yes, you guys got to head over to viore.com/power project. That's VUORI.com/power project to automatically receive 20% off your order. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
He won Masters Worlds, and his son Noah won Jiu-Jitsu Con, and the tournaments were taking place in the same place. So that shit,
That's
I saw that picture.
Casio
Can you pull it up?
gave a little tap on the head, right? He's having a good time.
Yeah. So Casio, guys, if you don't know, he's an instructor here in Sacramento. He won Adult Worlds in 2003, and he's a 6-time Masters Worlds champion.
Damn.
And his son Noah has been going through and ripping people up in tournaments this past year. But you know, father son, dude, like that's beautiful, man. Like that's a core memory for those guys.
Sick. Both taking home the gold.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's great too, because Casio like rolled up. He really just dominated these dudes. You know,
you got
like,
that clip where he patted the guy on the head?
It was on my story, but it's not there anymore.
Okay.
Yeah. There's actually some confusion. I thought that he was petting the guy because,
It kind of looked
like he was petting him because, he was going to beat him, but he says, oh, I accidentally elbowed his head. I don't really believe Casio, though. I think he was just showing a level of dominance.
I think so, too.
But hey, if he wants to say he was just, being nice, he was being nice.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, I felt like I needed to put a disclaimer on my stories because I was, celebrating Chris's win, so he's a world champion now. And then you won right after that. And then Casio won right after that. And so I was like, they don't just give these trophies out or, this title to just anybody.
Yeah.
It just so happens that all my friends kept winning. Like, it's not my fault. But
Yeah.
I just don't want people to think they just, everybody wins this weekend. Like,
Yeah.
no.
I do got to say, though, like what you were saying about the MJ thing, especially this past weekend competing, like I was fucking playing. This is the first time that like literally I was just like dancing in the bullpen and I was dancing on my way to the mats. I was playing some African music that I loved. I was just like, again, it was just the aspect of just letting myself just like fucking, just no fucking pressure. I danced right up until I stepped onto the mat in every single match. And I just felt so loose and everything was so chill. And none of the matches, I didn't even breathe heavy, dog. It felt really fucking good. It's just like everything came together. A lot of the shit that we've been working on is just like come together, and it was an awesome weekend.
Yeah, and I think the training and everything that you've been doing is, was probably levels above what you needed to be prepared for in competition.
100%.
Yeah, it seemed like in competition you did great, and no one scored on you. And recently, with the people that you've been going against in jiu-jitsu, I haven't heard you say anything close to that. So your training has been harder than the actual like fight itself, sort of deal.
Much harder. Yeah,
which I think is a critical thing.
I think it was really great timing that we took that trip to Austin, Texas. I was able to do some training with Nicholas Marigali, and him and Victor Hugo competed, and I was able to do some training with Victor Hugo. Got a lot of tips from those dudes. But I think like just being able to train with them for those days helped me improve drastically because I don't say this to, it's going to sound bad, but like this tournament was really easy for me. Like until like I didn't breathe through my mouth. I didn't get tired. I wish I didn't get disqualified for the absolute because I was 5 minutes late for my absolute match. So I didn't get to try to aim for double gold, but like it was legitimately easy. And the thing is like if my gold is black belt adult worlds, then brown belt masters world should be easy for me to be able to deal with. And the fact that it is gives me confidence moving and continuing on.
And it's been about 8 years or so coming up, right?
It'll be 8 years in December. Yeah. Started jiu-jitsu. Yeah. About 8 years come December.
I think it's just important for people to embrace the fact that it takes time. I hope that no one thinks that we have like some loser talk going over here by saying like we should take our time with stuff. You probably people probably have heard us saying, you know, you should pull back a bit. And there's people that are on the other side of that where like, no, man, what's happening? Like, why are you guys talking this way? You got to be like, fuck it, bro. And you got to go all in. We do believe in some of that sometimes. I do think that that's important. And all three of us have trained that way before. But we're also looking for something that's sustainable. Yeah. And again, I think, you know, looking at someone like David Goggins, when he talks, you're thinking, holy shit, like the guy's a complete madman. He's a complete maniac. But to me, when I look at David Goggins and I see some of the other things he participates in, and when I hear other people talk about him, Joe Rogan and people that are close to him, I'm like, that guy's actually like, it seems like he's got it going on. It seems like his life is really good. And it seems like he's pretty happy. It looks like he's figured things out. And again, going back to his quote, he needed to have it before he got to the Navy SEALs. I think if he didn't structure himself and didn't get himself prepared properly for the Navy SEALs, not just with training, but his mindset, because again, he wasn't able to complete it 2 times as well, and he was able to get it on the 3rd. I don't think he would have been able to transition out of the Navy SEALs because there's a lot of people where that's their that is their like main thing. That's like the climax of their life. That's like the big thing in their life. And if you look at someone like a Nick Bear, he's, you know, served in our military as well, but that was like a part of his life. And it looks like he's moving on and having a lot more success in a bunch of different areas as well. Now he's, you know, successful in business. He's actually very, very fucking fast as a runner, a sub 3-hour marathon. And you're seeing other guys start to be able to do this. And I think the transition for someone like Pete Rubish was actually more difficult, but he's doing a great job. Now he's running like 9-minute or 8.5-minute miles. He's fucking flying out there. I don't know what the hell's going on with that guy. But I think it's cool to do a sport, and it's cool to have that sport be a little bit part of your identity for a little while, but it's not so great when the sport is like your only thing and you're just so submerged in that. I've seen a lot of people not be able to like transition out of it well. And I think, again, just kind of back to that principle, if you have it before you go in there and you get yourself organized and you get your shit together and you do so in a timely fashion, like it's got to take time. Yeah. The only way to get good at anything is it's going to take time. Something like jiu-jitsu, realistically, you might think, all right, you know, starting in December, I'm going to go every day, you know, from here until, well, most of the time it doesn't work out that way to where you can even go every day in the first place. So you might have to space it out more. Same thing with like powerlifting. You got 3 or 4 decent, heavy training sessions a week. That's all you can do. That's going to take you X amount of years to do. You can't take steroids, you can eat differently, you can do all these things, and maybe you can fast track some of it, like just a little bit. But still, good luck with being good at it, much of anything, in less than 5 years.
I think this is why...
Pretty difficult.
Yeah. I think this is why there's an extreme power to being a hybrid athlete, because, and it takes time to become a hybrid athlete, because if you're someone who's been lifting for a long time, that's great. It's good that you have that skill, because now you can start to do a little bit of running. and you can build that skill, but you always have lifting to fall back to, because as you start trying to get better at running, you're going to get fatigued. And on the days that you can't run, well, you have this skill of lifting that you can then call upon to be like, okay, let me go lift in the gym. Let me go do a little bit of kettlebell stuff. Let me do this, right? So now let's say that you've gotten good at running and lifting and you want to build another skill. Let's say that you want to start getting into jiu-jitsu. Well, look now, you can't train jiu-jitsu 7 days a week, even though you may really, really, really like it. But maybe you train jiu-jitsu 2 or 3 times a week. And on those days that you don't train jiu-jitsu because it's so fatiguing in terms of your body, you now have running and lifting that you can fall back upon. So on a day that you're not doing jiu-jitsu, let me just go take a little bit of run because you have that skill.
Getting better at it.
Exactly. Let me go in the gym and do some kettlebell work. That's why I fucking love this kettlebell juggling stuff. Because on the days that like maybe jiu-jitsu is a little bit too fatiguing for me, or I don't want to go and I don't want to lift heavy, you just go out to the park and juggle a kettlebell. And it's legitimately a skill because you learn new movements, you just continue getting better, and it's fun. So you're not now identifying yourself as, I'm a power lifter, I'm a bodybuilder, I'm a whatever. It's like you have an access to all of these different capacities that you can pull on when something might be taken away from you. If you get injured because you were running and you did something running, right? You injure your ankle, go to the gym, you got something there, right? If you get injured in jiu-jitsu, well, you can do some stuff because you have other skills. Now that one injury doesn't make you a depressed wreck, because injuries have done that to me before. It doesn't make you a depressed wreck because you've built all these capacities, and it's not now the only thing you have to do for the rest of your life.
What if you really want to get better at jiu-jitsu though, and you want to spend more mat time or time on the mats?
So a lot of jiu-jitsu guys get burnt out, dog. Like, I think we've talked about it. It's like I've seen a lot of jiu-jitsu guys that are like everyday porrada. You know what I mean? Like they train all the time.
Yeah.
And then at some point, like something happens, bad injury or whatever, and they just get fucking burnt out of it. Right. I think that getting better at all the things that we're talking about, it should be looked at in a long-term lens. Because there are really there are the awesome guys who managed to get their black belt in like 4 years or 5 years. And those are amazing stories. But the thing is like, that's not going to be most people. Most people can 100% get their black belt, but maybe they lengthen out their time horizon, make the training sustainable, give themselves a chance to like always enjoy doing this thing, right? You'll still get there, and hopefully you'll get there with minimal injury, minimal breakdown, because you've given yourself the time to actually get good. And you also still now have all these other things that you can be good at too. So that again, you're not like only jiu-jitsu and that's all you got in your life.
You're also like maturing in other ways too, and growing in other ways, growing outside of jiu-jitsu, which could potentially help a lot, because then you're not only thinking about like being on the mats all the time. Like you are putting some time into your financial success, as well as your look, your home life matters a lot.
Oh yeah.
Like if you have like just bad relationships and stuff, like, I don't know, maybe that'll work for a little while, but it'd probably just add to the stress. It'd probably mess with your training. Maybe it messes with your lifting or takes away from some of the things that you need to do to get better. And so I think it just sucks, like, because no one wants to play the long game, but the long game is where it's at. And a lot of people, I remember Anderson Silva in an interview one time saying, like they asked him how he got all this stuff. You have this beautiful home, and you have this beautiful family, and you have all these cars, and he's like, it just is. Like that's just the way that it is. I've been doing this since I was 6. Like he barely even recognized that he's good at it. Like he's just been doing it for so long that he can just take anybody out. And he was the best in the world for many years. So I think taking your time with it, I think, is really critical.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, it is amazing, because we talk about this with like lifting and diet. Like you'll get to a point where it's like hard to not do that. I didn't expect for that to happen to me with jiu-jitsu so fast, but that is the argument that or the dilemma that I'm facing right now, is going less, because I want to go more. I want to get better, not even better faster. Well, that's a lie. I definitely want to get better faster, but I know I'm going to be doing this forever. It's just that thing where it's like, well, if I go more, then I'll acquire more skills, right? Like just by being there, it'll like happen almost accidentally. But I'm receiving what you guys are saying,
Wait. But also, why aren't you going more? You mentioned, so there's something else. The reason why you're not training more, right?
Yeah. Because when I go 4 days a week, I have full intention to lift that 5th extra day that I'm free, and I'm shot. Like, I don't want to do anything. I'm really, really tired. And then, so that's usually a Thursday. And then come that Friday, instead of taking it easy or having, skipping open mat or whatever, I go just as hard. And then the next day off, which would be Saturday, I feel the same way. I'm like, fuck. Like, man, I'm really drained right now.
And how long have you been, again, though, this is the context. How long have you been doing jiu-jitsu now?
Yeah, so we just started September, October. So I started in November of last year. So
last year.
Was that 10 months now?
Yeah, 10 months.
Yeah.
It's still new.
It's
How has it been for you, Nsima, going to some different schools, going to some different places? That's got to feel like invigorating. That's got to feel good to have different surroundings sometimes.
Oh, 100%. Like when you train at the same place for so long, then you kind of know what everybody does. It doesn't mean that you won't be surprised, but I kind of know the style of which everybody I roll with has. And in my mind, I already kind of know how to deal with that. So,
like, this guy smells like shit. This guy has long fingernails. This guy always tries to fucking cheat. This guy goes way too hard. This guy goes way too soft. I'm fucking out of here.
But I still train at Cassio's every week, but Cassio has given me, he's always given me the permission. And then these other schools that I've been going to get training and cross training in, those instructors have always been super cool with me training with their students, right? So it's been really good because now it's almost like, and I don't look at it like I'm trying to compete against these people, but it's almost like a competition experience because I'm going into a place where I don't know everybody.
You get a little nervous if you've never been there before?
No, I don't anymore.
But you used to.
I used to, especially when I first started doing it. The reason I don't anymore is because like I've become confident in the instruction that Cassio's given me, and I've become confident in my jiu-jitsu. So now it's just like I'm just gonna play my game, and if this guy taps me, I'm gonna learn from it. But I'm not.
Seems like a cool stimulus, though. It's almost like a game. It's almost like an event.
It feels like
like a match.
It feels like a video game. And it also does feel like a match because this isn't somebody I roll with normally. Like I was invited to go roll over at this Half Gracie school in Berkeley. They have this great open mat on Sundays. And the first time I went there, I've never rolled with any of those guys, but this guy I met before, his name's Don. He's like, I want you to roll with him. And he was just like setting me up to roll with all these different people who I've never rolled with before. And that was amazing because I've never rolled with them before. They've never seen my game. I've never seen their game. Let's see who's better, right? And let's help each other get better. Because now that we're training with each other, we always chat post like, okay, what was it that you did there? What was it that you did there, right? You're able to get all this knowledge from these different people, which is why like I think this community is so fucking awesome. Some places, there's some schools that like, they're not cool with their athletes cross training or anything or going to other places, right? But Cassio's been cool with me doing it. And that has been something that has massively helped me get better. I think a wave started getting better when I started going to train with Mason over at Kyle Terra because Mason's a world-class athlete. And I was able to feel what world-class pressure feels like. And just by training with him, I was able to get better. So then I was able to bring that back with me and that experience. And it's helped with, same thing with training with Nicholas and Victor, like, those things have helped drastically. So you're working out, you're working on your nutrition, you're working on your feet, you're working on your sleep, and all these things are having benefit. But what's going on underneath the hood? What's going on with your hormones? That question is answered by working with Merrick Health. It's owned by Derek for More Plates, More Dates. And getting your blood work done by Merrick Health will help you understand what's going on under the hood. They have different panels that you can do once every 6 months or every single month so you can understand how your sleep, all these different protocols that you're adding into your routine are affecting your hormones. It's important to understand, and it's also important to know if what you're doing is actually working. Andrew, how can they get their hands on it?
Yes, that's over at merrickhealth.com/powerproject. And at checkout, enter promo code POWERPROJECT to save 10% off the Power Project panel, the checkup panel, or any individual lab that you select. Again, that's at merrickhealth.com/powerproject. Promo code POWERPROJECT at checkout. Links in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
I've noticed the same thing with running is like the new stimulus makes it feel new, makes it feel exciting. Sometimes the mileage goes by quick. By running with like Nick Bear or Zach Bitter or Jeremy Miller, some of these guys are really fast. And I'm naturally just going to go faster. But they're also like, it's like the different belts. Like they're not just trying to like murder me. Like we have a training session going. They're not like, all right, Mark, I'll see you later. They're gonna finish their 10 miles and I ran 4 miles or something. They stay with you the whole time. Yeah. But it's encouraging, and you just find yourself. You're like, okay, they're able to talk a little easier than me, so I'm gonna shut the fuck up now and kind of concentrate on my run.
That is one thing. Okay, so when you asked if I get nervous, that is one thing that does cross my mind a little bit, just because I don't know where I'm going. I know that I'm going to be safe. I'll never roll with an intent, or I never roll in a way that I'll injure somebody, but I don't know about that the person I'm training with. Mm-hmm. So like, I don't know if like, since I've never trained with this guy and I'm big, is he going to try to, if he gets to a submission, is he going to give me time to tap, or is he going to try to rip my shit? I'm going to most of the time like to believe that people are going to be cool, but some of these motherfuckers are crazy and you don't know if you're rolling with one of the crazies or not.
So would you maybe just, if you had to, would you just tap a little early? If you
if I had to,
I'm not sure.
If I had to, then yeah, I would. But like, generally, I don't necessarily get put in positions these days that cause that often. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's always a possibility. It's always a possibility. So it's something to be careful with.
You think if you, have you experienced going less to jiu-jitsu and then having the energy to lift?
Well, I mean, yeah. So like if we go, so the last time I rolled was last Wednesday, and then I got kind of sick, so I didn't roll Friday. And then we had, Labor Day. So I didn't make it to open mat. So today was my first day I rolled since last Wednesday. Mm-hmm. And today I felt pretty damn good.
Yeah.
But guess what I did in between those, 4 days?
What?
I got a really, really good lifting session in.
I thought you were saying blowjob. So like, damn. Just the way you're setting it up, I got it really good, and I was like,
just the pure silence after you said that, Mark. I thought you were going to say blowjob.
And then no reaction.
That in itself was funny.
Just the fact that like I'm finding out more people like in the family and close to me that start listening to the show. I can't be as open as I used to be. But let's just say,
why can't the family handle it if you got a blowjob?
Because then
they know it's happening.
They'll talk about it, and so we'll
he gets blowjobs from his wife.
We'll just say that there was no lies said in the last couple minutes. All right, but I felt great, and then the conversation that we had over text, where I was like, guys, I don't know what the hell I did. I ate a lot of food, and I woke up fucking like in the I felt, dude. I'm not saying that like I wasn't shredded. I still have, a good amount of fat on my body, but like it was almost like it was just muscle and fat and no water. Everything was just tight, and I had no flat. Like it was fucking awesome. Like, what's going on here? And then Mark was like, "Oh, you probably got some rest." And I'm like, "You are probably right." And so
that was the thing.
And dude, it like, oh man, I wish I should have took pictures and like did all kinds of cool shit, but I didn't. But yeah, so all that happened when I rolled less, and then I went into open mat today, and I had a fucking really phenomenal day. So you might be onto something.
No, okay. I think I've told you this before, but I've also told this to I've talked to Julian about this, and I've noticed this years ago. It's like I have stints where like I go to jiu-jitsu a lot, and maybe something happens, and I'm like, okay, I need to take a few days off, right? And then if I take maybe 3-4 days off, I go back, and it's just like certain things have clicked. It's like certain things have had time to cement in. Whereas if you're going every single day, you kind of get caught in a mind loop of like, okay, we're going to go again. We're going to go again. And it's like you don't give yourself the time to have everything, the progress you've made set in. You actually mentioned it. You're mentioning in a text, the best athletes know when to back off.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a learning thing too. Like I mean, you guys must realize this, but like, there's so many things you're learning. Mm-hmm. Like if you play baseball, you play basketball, you play football, it's like you play them for a couple years, the steps are pretty much the same. Yeah. You learn a right-handed layup, a left-handed layup. Different players show you some different moves or whatever, like a fadeaway shot, or there's a certain way to. But you guys are learning like it's like there's a lot of heavy learning going on. And then, like, what do we know about learning? Like, through this show and through talking to other people, like, one of the best ways to have learning cemented into your brain is through what? Sleep. right? Sleep and rest, right? And so obviously if you're away from it too long, like I remember doing jujitsu a long time ago and like doing it from like 1 week to the next, I was like, I take this guy's wrist and that way. And then they're like, no, this, and I'm like, oh shit, I forgot everything from last week. So obviously too much time's not good, but having a little space will probably, help you to be sharper. Did you have a hard time when you were newer in jiu-jitsu with taking off? Because it seems like you don't have any problem. Like, have you noticed that, Andrew? He's like, yeah, I just took like 3-4 days off.
Yeah, right before a world's competition.
Yeah, and we like from my perspective, when I hear other people, they're like, yeah, I think I need to take a couple of days off, but I don't want to. Like, they're real bummed. You don't seem to have any problem with just being like, yeah, I think I just need those days off. Was it hard for you in the beginning to do that?
Yeah, in the beginning, it was.
People shame you? Like, do people talk shit? Like, when you're like, where were you, bro? Like, you were out? Like, I mean, not anymore, obviously, because you can just beat the fuck out of them. But
no. People won't talk. I don't think even in general, people don't talk shit if you're gone for a few days. People will talk shit if, like, you're gone for a month and you come back and it's like, you weren't even injured? What the fuck? Like, it's something, yeah. But in the beginning, I think I've dealt with the same thing as Andrew because, like, you want to go a lot, but your body's still adapting, right? And that was very frustrating for me because I'd just have little things here and there and I'd go into training sessions, they wouldn't be as good. And obviously there's not just the fact of your body adapting, there's the fact of like, this is a totally new thing. Like this is a totally new bodily language that you're trying to learn. And it's like you go in some weeks, things make sense. You go in other weeks, things don't make sense. So it's multifactorial fucking annoyance. But at the beginning, yes. But as my body started to adapt to jiu-jitsu, then it wasn't as difficult going multiple days on end, even though here and there little injuries would happen. But nowadays, yeah, I took 4 days off of training the week before Worlds. I didn't feel like shit though, because like I knew that my back needs to recover and training more wouldn't do me any good. Because I wasn't trying to do anything new. I was just doing a lot of the things I've been doing. So I felt fine. And every day as my back just started to feel better and better, I'm like, okay, we're going to be okay. It didn't trip me out too much. So.
And you were doing explosive movements in here. You were doing stuff with like the med ball.
Yeah.
I saw you even like, which sounds kind of funny, but you were like going pretty hard on like the tibialis raises. Like you were doing a lot of stuff where you were maybe putting a little more vigor into some stuff that I haven't seen. You do that occasionally, but probably because you weren't doing jiu-jitsu, so you were supplementing with the exercise you were doing in the gym, maybe?
Exactly, because like there's certain things that even though I couldn't put my energy into the mats, there's, like we talked about earlier, there's a bunch of other things that I know how to do that I can put my energy into that's going to be beneficial for me, So it's that's why I think it's important to, have the ability to do other things so that when something is taken away from you for a little bit, it doesn't fuck with you too much. And also the aspect, as you mentioned, home life. I know we're talking so much about fitness, but there's some nights where like, let's say like I haven't seen my girlfriend in a minute, or it's been like a while since we've really been able to hang out. And it's usually one of the nights I'll go to jiu-jitsu, but I'm like, okay, let me just go to the park and do some kettlebell shit for like 20, 30 minutes so I can come back home and hang out with her, because I still need something that'll allow me to sweat and feel good. Right? So that's shorter. It's not as much time. It doesn't take 2 hours, but at least now I can just get my sweat, hang out with my girl. Right? So it helps home life get better too, having more options in terms of fitness.
I dig that.
Yeah. That's why I do I go in the mornings for my home life, because I can't go, middle of the evening. But like I do want to hit the 12 session with James on Thursdays.
I got you.
And I understand that could be a lighter session, but in my head I'm like, yeah, all right, I could commit to 3 days a week.
Plus James Purat, guys.
Plus that session, so that's 4. We're back up to 4 again. It quickly went right back.
Hey man, no, over time, like with anything you do, like your body will get better at handling the stress. Like it's really awesome because now with jiu-jitsu, I can go through a session and it's like, most of the time I don't really feel it the next day. So that's why like every day I do some form of lifting, and most days I'll do some jujitsu. Jujitsu is at this point going to be like it has been a 6 to 8 times a week type of deal where I'll have 6 to 8 sessions, right? Depending on the week. And then some days like the week before Worlds, it won't be as many because I have a back thing I was dealing with. So
I think we got to keep in mind too, when we're pursuing new stuff, that even though you might have been doing something for a while, a couple of months or even a year or two, that there still could be so many new stimulus within that. So like jujitsu, the little bit that I've done, it's like you're kind of just on the ground, like that's the safest way to learn it. Like you're just on the ground a bunch. But when you go and do a match, you start standing, right? And there's so many more things to still learn. And if you are, starting in standing positions and like really going at it, like that's a different stimulus than working on the ground and working on getting in and out of moves, right?
Oh yeah.
It's a way different stimulus. So I think we always have to keep that in mind. And then when it comes to something like running, there's different stimulus there. Somebody just all of a sudden out of nowhere just starts wanting to do more intense runs, starts to want to run faster or start to do like sprints and stuff like that. It's going to have like more wear and tear on your body. So you got to really pay attention to all the different things that you're adding in. And then there's got to be, at some point, there's got to be some sort of subtraction from that. That's kind of just the way the body works.
Even right now with the heavy bag work I've been doing, I can feel like this area, there's like some inflammation going on in my fist because I've been punching it so much, right? So I need to be mindful, like even though this feels good, I need to slowly progress myself into doing this more and more and more, right? It's the simple shit.
Dope. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.
If you enjoyed this podcast with world champion Nsima Inyang, I'm joking. It's true though. Check out this podcast with Giancarlo Bedoni, where he actually helped us learn a lot about how we should look at competing. He's the one who said that it should be nothing else than performing. So this is a really good one. You should click it because the world champion.